Our musical hosts today are the band Samana, two artists bound by vision, by sound, by the pull of something ancient and unseen. Rebecca Rose Harris and Franklin Mockett, walking the line between music and poetry, between photography and film. Work not just created, but conjured, shamanic in spirit, cinematic in scale. The story began with a year on the road, through Eastern Europe's untamed landscapes, where they lived in stillness, in silence, absorbing the stories of rivers, ruins, and restless skies. Each place left a mark, each encounter a thread woven into their music's tapestry. Returning to England, they moved to the Welsh hills and created a world to breathe forth new creations, an analog studio, a darkroom, a sanctuary carved from solitude. An analog studio, a darkroom, a sanctuary carved from solitude. Here their process became ritual. Each note and lyric a call to something deeper, an offering to the vast expanse of human emotion. Dream time, transcendence, mortality, the subconscious, themes that drift through their music like mist on the mountains. Their sound? Music that feels like an echo of something you've always known, but never quite heard before. Shamana is more than music though. It's a philosophy, a way of being, a place where art is lived, not just made. Their home deep in the Welsh countryside is not just a studio, but a statement, a place where creativity is cultivated like the land itself, where performances are not just concerts, but communion. Spaces for healing, for reckoning, for sound, for being seen. In a world splintered by screens and distance, their presence alone is a rebellion. And today, they're joined by a kindred spirit, a writer whose words, like their music, reach beyond time and space. Anne Michaels, poet, novelist, architect of memory, a voice that lingers, that pulls the past into the present, that stitches together love, loss, exile, longing, a meditation what it means to be alive and to remember. Like Samana, she believes in language as a force that heals, that transforms, offering not just words, but worlds. Welcome to Podsongs.
How are you doing? Thanks for having us on.
No, it's my pleasure. It's great to have you. Thanks. Where are you in France then?
Yeah. We're down, kind of in the mid Pyrenees, sort of mid south.
Are you living there then, or?
No, we're just down for residency.
Okay.
Come from one place of solitude to another, really. We it's kind of an annual thing that we do. We come down in the winter, and just it's really nice here. Although we live very rurally anyway, out here we know nobody, so it's just there's no better way for us of creating in solitude than coming down here. It's been really lovely, actually.
And you're in Italy?
Yes.
And do you live out in Italy then?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Amazing.
Whereabouts are you?
Underneath the Amalfi Coast.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Have you been down this way?
We've no, you know what? I've not. No, we've never been that way. We've been on the other side. We've been to. We went down the to Eastern Europe. We went down the side of, is that the Adriatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but never that way. No.
What was it that drew you to live there then?
My girlfriend. She dragged me back, kicking and screaming.
So are you Italian yourself then?
No, I'm English. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Kicking and how long ago was that then?
Oh, about 14 years now. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we met when I was on tour in New Zealand, and she was just traveling to learn English, and we traveled together for 8 months, kind of like your journey through Eastern Europe. We did almost a year around Asia, and her English improved a lot, and then she brought me back to Italy, and it's taken me 14 years to get to a very basic level of Italian.
And modesty, no doubt.
Yeah.
That's great. And how do you find the lifestyle out there?
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. We right by the sea. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, can go down there and there's the mountains behind us. It's very rugged landscapes, really up and down. It's this area. It's opposite the Amalfi Coast and Pestum's nearby. Pompeii is about an hour and a half.
Wow.
That must be
Definitely.
really special having the ocean and the mountains.
It is, yeah.
Those two together is something quite profound.
It is a beautiful place. I really would, because sometimes you want to go up to the mountains, sometimes you want to go down to the sea, and
Yeah.
it's really just 10 minutes difference.
Wow.
Right.
That's quite
And where you are in
cool.
France then? Which part?
So it's about an hour north of Toulouse.
Okay.
We actually did a little drive the other day. I was desperate to see the Pyrenees. I've been really wanting to see the mountains. So,
Uh-huh.
and we make some days when because it is quite insular here. We've been so nestled into the studio. We went for a lovely drive because Beck's broken her toe, sadly. So we normally would be doing huge walks, and we kind of got cabin fever. We decided we'd check out, and we got to this lovely place. It's not far from a place called Narjac, which is an awe-inspiring, beautiful little town. It's very quintessentially French with this amazing castle that's just set amongst these amazing, beautiful, sweeping houses. And we were driving for hours and hours trying to find a pocket where we could see over it to see the Pyrenees. And then we ended up doubling back and realizing that it was only about 10 minutes from this house that you can actually find the vantage point. And there we just sat and looked at all the snow-capped Pyrenees. It was very, very beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is a lovely area around here. You love the lifestyle. It's just a very tranquil pace.
Yeah. It feels like a good pace, definitely. Just the relationship with, many of the basic things that's so fundamental, but just the relationship with just simple things like food and the land.
Mm-hmm.
It's so predominant here that you just feel it in the air and the people that you kind of pass.
Yeah, because if you're in Wales, you're in a valley there, I imagine.
Yeah.
Or in a
very
Welsh
much so.
valley.
Yeah.
That's the valley.
Yeah. We're in a very steep valley, actually. I'm surprised it wasn't flooded. One of the valleys that they flooded, because there was a valley in mid Wales that they flooded that used to have one of the oldest monasteries in the UK, and it also had this pink mansion that Yeats was obsessed with.
Mhm.
He really wanted to buy it and turn it into this, I guess, place where poets and different artists and different minds would live. But that was pretty steep, and they flooded that. And sometimes you can see the church steeple, like divers go down to kind of see it. But the valley we're in is so steep. I'm surprised in a way. It's so steep and very narrow.
But where we live, it's so a few of our neighbours, bless them, right now and for some time have not seen the sun at all.
Yeah, down the other
they're
side.
north facing. Our house actually faces south, so over the course of the day, even on the shortest day, you'll see the sun will actually rise perfectly in alignment, and it will step in alignment with the slope of the valley itself.
Mm.
So it's but yeah, we also came out here for the walk as well, but it's not flat. But meaning lakes every morning.
The sun is.
Yeah, but it's a blissful day today.
And is it an artistic residency then? How does it work where you are?
So it's basically so we've been coming out here for some time. It's like within my family there's this house that's available. People go and move between it. So we've been using it over the years in winter when it's not occupied. And we kind of curate our own residencies, but it's been very much for us. It's been pretty integral in our kind of our artistic process. This place and this land, just because of where it sits, it's so unperturbed by agriculture or anything. It's very much it's a house that sits in the valley. I'm just looking out at the moment. It's all scrub oak. There are no houses anywhere nearby, and it's just really lovely to have that magnanimity of nature here.
It's very close to some of the pre-Neolithic caves as well, with really significant cave artwork, which is really
Paleolithic caves. Yeah.
Can you go and see them?
Yeah. Well, there are a few that are open to the public. which is pretty humbling actually. It's really interesting because they've got this timeline that you can walk this timeline. It's the timeline of humanity. It kind of begins at 250,000, well 2.5 million, but they don't bother with that. They start at 250,000 and incrementally you walk this quite a long distance, like 300 meters. And it's just really is, like I said, it's so humbling because you realize how much time is spanned from, obviously in human history. And just like how little kind of happened over those huge, vast expanses of time, up to kind of like the Mesolithic age or Paleolithic age. And then it's very, very much exponential. You start seeing all of a sudden these milestones getting closer and closer. And then you get to modernity, which is a breath, it's a half a step in the last 2,000 years. And all of a sudden it just goes like, whoosh. And you just, it's an interesting thing to think, how's that, if we double that distance and look in the future, is there a degree of sustainability that you had in the Mesolithic or the Paleolithic or the Neanderthal age?
My son is 2.5. I'm keeping all his drawings, and I hope to see the same level of improvement.
Oh, that's great. So actually, how long have you been doing this show for then?
It was a COVID project, so locked in my house in a valley and nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So, I was doing a lot of podcast interviews, for my last album, and I really enjoy it, because you can just chat like this, what it's like when you do a normal interview with a journalist, or they just cut it up and use the bits when you're actually funny.
Yeah.
That's something interesting. But here you can just ramble on for quite a while, and it's just nice conversation. It's very relaxed format, and I was writing songs for people I meet anyway, so this is kind of a natural extension. And as you guys do, I mean, your songs are so what's the right word? Expansive cinematic experiences that you feel like today I'm going to see a Samana song form. Samana song form is a wonderful thing.
Oh man, yeah. Well, it's really exciting to be a part of such a project as this. It's great, and I love that. It was interesting, COVID, because you did, a lot of those creatives, because obviously, a lot of our sensibility, well, for me speaking personally, so many of my like creative or my professional sensibilities are buried in that solitary nature. So although it was, a challenging time, I think quite a lot of my friends who are artists, who are those insular solitary artists, kind of came to life in many respects. And although we were kind of buried in a lot of work at the time, so many interesting collaborations coming up to, and people wanting to reach out and work remotely. It was an interesting time in that sense. And like you say, with the birth of bits, I mean, that's quite an amazing thing to come out of something such as COVID, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So, but why Anne Michaels then? What would draw you to her work?
She is certainly a favorite writer, like one of a very near collection of writers that we hold to be just very poignant in terms of, it feels like her work is a real reflection of very integral lessons of what it is to be conscious. And really the details of the interconnectedness of all things. I feel her writing it's something very sacred. She's one of those writers that feels that when you read her work, it feels like a type of frequency in a way. Like it has the ability to tune you into a certain frequency that after you've read something, you absorb something with such presence. So I think like for that sense of the quintessence, and it's something within our work that's such a huge part of our creative process, is this extrapolation of the quintessence of something, almost in an alchemic way, of the core, the layers, but then the core, like the pure core of something. And that element is something I just feel so strongly. We feel so strongly from her work, so it'd be really interesting to speak to her.
She also uses language in a way I've not. She uses and writes with such a rich tapestry of language. You can, I know she takes the time that she takes to write the books, like, huge pieces. I actually recently reading Held as well. Just you can understand and comprehend as to why it is that she's taken so long to write books and research. It's like it goes beyond, for me at least, a lot of her work goes beyond the notion of writing and like the evocation of a feeling. I think, but for me, what is interesting about her work is it feels to me like a lot of her work expresses that of a really inquisitive human being who's on this planet to learn and to absorb. And I feel like it's really interesting reading all these different, because she brings so many different facets. She brings neuroscience, or she brings philosophy, she brings like transcendentalism or dreaming, and that you can see how she's moved through these worlds herself and really absorbed herself with those worlds. So I think that's something that for us is really inspiring, is that she kind of moves through the landscapes of humanity and beyond in transcendental natures and things. So it's really, I see her work to be very landscapey. It's amazing, really beautiful.
But I did have many questions to ask you. Well, it seems we're running out of time, but you can just fill in about these concerts. They look amazing. Are they in churches or cathedrals or?
All different spaces, really. I mean, it's there is predominant attention that we place on the significance of the buildings themselves, just in terms of with that tour performing in places that have a significant history, just in whatever regard, but have like layers of history, is a really powerful part of the performance buildings. Yeah.
And it's been amazing watching it grow as well, and seeing how, because it's held in the round. That's a really important fundamental kind of element, which is very in itself. It's very much people walk in, and it starts off as a kind of spectacle for people to think, oh, well, but actually it makes a lot of sense when you, just in terms of the interface of how we receive art and create, particularly music. When you bring it into a space in the round, there is a very subtle. Well, actually, I say subtle. There is a certain difference between. It kind of breaks down that performance audio barrier. So that then has necessitated the venues that we've been going to, obviously both in terms of size, scope, but also in terms of like magnitude of the building and the architecture of the building, and creating that sense of wonderment. But it's so integral because our work is so centered around landscapes, and the worlds that it's born from. So for us, it's really fitting, and it's presented in that way.
And did you do shamanic rituals before and things like that? Is it informed by that?
No, I mean, yeah, in terms of our world, it's a huge element. Like, we're actually currently undergoing a big research project in terms of different shamanic principles that span the ages and span all different countries, which is just profoundly interesting, isn't the word? It feels such a huge part of humanity, really, and beyond humanity. Again, just that circuit through all things. But when we perform these performances within Tune with the Infinite, if there is a sense of ritual at the beginning, so we burn a very particular combination of herbs, which is to do with the dreaming realm. So like mugwort, frankincense, sage, and we take them around the audience. And then we start with the gong. So Franklin plays the gong almost like a painting. It's like with these type of paintbrushes that they're not paintbrushes, but they're an instrument for the gong itself that create this unbelievable resonance. And we always start that way. So for us, as the people playing the music, it's our beginning of just being present with where we're all about to go to collectively.
Yeah. I guess also just to kind of, I think it's important to mention for me, for my sake, is that this year and the last year was very much centered around the art and the creation informing our lives, as opposed to our lives being, I think not that we fell into the trap, I think innately in the Western world with arts and creation, particularly with music, the whole strategy, release campaigns, all these things, they necessitate the creation. And actually what we realized for us was the importance of the reclamation of being led by the creation and by the intention. I think for me, what I've realized is that although there's an application and people have spoken about some of the performances that we give to have those kinds of shamanic journey and sensibility, for me, it's not something that it's something that I've lent myself to and I'm exploring, but I'm just beginning. This is, for me, I feel like Rebecca possesses qualities, like shamanic qualities that are evoked in your work through time. Whereas for me, it's something that I'm exploring, I'm beginning to really fall into now. And I'm really excited by it. And I'm just at the beginning of it, but I'm beginning to understand this subconscious element of our work and how those elements and facets that you explore through those kinds of realms actually have existed within myself. And I think that's a really beautiful notion for me in exploring and sharing that is the accessibility of those worlds and those realms. Really interesting. So, but yeah, it's been a great journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you guys are interviewing Anne because you're so much more articulate than me.
So sorry about that. Well, freeze up as soon as I see her.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for her because some of these episodes, she gets interviewed by many people, but to be interviewed by a fan is always such a pleasure because you get unusual questions and speak of the devil, like here she is. Let me admit her.
Hello.
Oh, what a joy. It's an absolute joy to see you. And it feels like a reunion rather than a first meeting. Are you both well? Jack,
Yeah.
are you well?
Very good,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Really, really well. We just had a beautiful half hour just connecting and speaking. It's been really, really lovely. So welcome.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here. What you do is remarkable. And I wish you all the power and strength to reach as many people as you can because it's truly transformative what you do. Beautiful and meaningful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It means so much to us. Hear those words from you. We've been enshrouded in your world, in hell. We've been held by hell recently.
Oh.
It's, and obviously we'll speak about it a little in the interview, but just the reason. I mean, I'm not sure as to. Obviously, you received the message from Rebecca as to kind of the reason as to why we wish to speak to you. So we were just speaking to Jack about the landscapes and the worlds that you evoke in your work and in the kind of transcendental essence of what it is to be. So in the minute, in the small, in the small nuances of life and the necessity of life, but also beyond that into the dreams and into the astral realms. It's just for us, it's a language that, well, for me personally, it's. It sounds a bit, I don't want to get emotional, but I could get emotional actually. But I think the language that you bring to your work is something that I feel is mirrored in Rebecca. It's something that I've always felt when I read your words, it's like a world that I get from Rebecca. And that the intricacy of love and life and the articulation and the poetry of all things. It's really moving. It's really special. So thank you for your work and for holding that space for people such as us to be inspired and to walk in those realms. It's just it's such a joy. It really is. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you with all my heart. And I have to say, I feel that same instant, profound connection when I hear you. And also when I see what you've done. We'll talk about this, but the film work is extraordinary. Yeah. And I love the Super 8. It's just brilliant. But I share that feeling.
Thank you.
So, yes, there's a lot to say.
There is. Mm.
So I don't know if what do we do? Do we leap in? Do we? I don't. How do you? And you from this conversation, you will make something. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Oh, that is truly heartwarming to me. Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to that very much.
Yeah, so do we. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be powerful.
And it's come at a really profound time for us as well. This meeting,
Yeah.
obviously I spoke a bit about reading your book again, picking up your book, and just like the journey that Rebecca and I are on. We're at the moment we're doing a residency, so we're kind of we're in, I say, solitary confinement, but it feels a bit like that. I mean, we're in the middle of the south of France, but we very much kind of centered ourselves or re-navigated into a place of solitude. And with that has come some really fundamentally beautiful lessons in life and in stillness. So the two of you I think we haven't actually opened our mouths to ourselves for some time. So it feels really fitting that this is the kind of our first conversation.
Yeah, very poignant.
For some time now.
Yeah, very poignant.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about just that in terms of you both, because it seems to me that you're just at the beginning of, not the beginning of what you do, certainly not, but at some threshold of meeting the world in a certain way or at a certain scale. And I hope that's hard to navigate. Just time, energy, but you have each other, and you have a little shelter between you. So I think you'll be able to just retain what you need, and get back what you need, be nourished by doing it. But I'm just saying, I'm wishing you well, because it's hard to go into the world at a certain scale and feel you're still grounded and have your own quiet and all of that. So, but if anyone can do it, you guys could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it's interesting with I was watching an interview with Scorsese. He was recently he was referencing two filmmakers who inspired him as a child. And he was referencing a quotation, I believe, by them about how an artist of any domain is compelled to create from a need of necessity. I think it's interesting because it's that necessity, it's that relationship between that almost divine act, in whatever medium, that it's this conversation between you and almost the metaphysical. And then when you bring it into the world of, I guess, a portion of chaos, and also all the elements of how that looks, unrolling that into, the societal implications of, just coexisting with the element that we all have to. I think there's a real sense of just letting go and just trusting. It's, I think on the more, I think it's the connection, for want of a better word, just trusting that the work reaches and finds the people that it's meant to, without any of that pushing, which is definitely, there's been lessons within that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like there are lessons in life, I think, in many ways within that, but yeah, just really trusting in the work, believing in it. And also it's a vehicle into the sacred. Vehicle maybe isn't, but it's a transportation into the sacred, I feel. Absolutely. Like wholeheartedly feel that. So I guess, yeah, it's a blessing to be able to follow it with all intention, and just regardless of exactly where it goes in that sense, or just, just to follow it until the last breath, so to speak. It's a profound teacher as well in so many ways, in so many realms.
Reading at the moment, you read, well, I know you reference Rudolf Steiner in some of your work. It's about theosophy, which is really interesting. It's something I've not explored really in great detail. And it's quite interesting because obviously we've been speaking about different facets of what we do with Jack, about creation and this idea of this distillation process of quintessence, of feeling, or of a sense of timelessness, whatever it is. And it's been really interesting exploring these new notions of other realms that he speaks of. And it's whether one believes it or not, it's just this really interesting idea of giving yourself or shedding those distractions. So many distractions and practicalities in life that stop and can kind of perturb that stillness that we feel, like the stillness that you find in your books, or the time that it takes you to create and compose those books, and the work that you do, and the places that you must venture into to explore and research the intricate layers of your book. It's just interesting kind of reading about this. And I was reading about it with Rick Rubin as well. He speaks about this source, this idea and notion of a source, like source material within the universe. We have our antennae. These are pretty nebulous concepts maybe a few years ago, but when I was living in it, I was kind of experiencing and living in a certain cycle. But it's been really interesting more recently, giving ourselves back to nature again, and reclaiming ourselves and the quietness within ourselves, and realizing that when you open yourself up to it, whether you're a vehicle or transport or whatever that is, I think the beauty is that within it all, you find a degree of stillness where it flows into you. And I think that's when you really reach people in that way, like the way that you've reached that in your work, and seemingly the way that certain individuals are beginning to respond to our work and like recontextualize what we do. It's just been a really interesting process, and it's just like, for me, I just feel like there's a trade-off between a sense of a passage for oneself to employ these sensibilities in life, but also in doing so, this beautiful realm that opens up, where you feel like there's a sense of timelessness. Really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's it's what we do is a kind of redemption, because it's finding something that would otherwise not be seen, or something that might be lost. I mean, when I work, I'm working with things that I know it's going to take me a very long time, and there are connections between disparate things, and I don't know how they connect, and they can be extremely disparate, but I know they connect. I intuitively understand they connect, and it can take years to reach that place, that depth, where it's like groundwater, where that subterranean, that subterranean network of rivers, where things connect, and then you understand that it's the relationship between historic events, the relationship between gestures, the relationship between ideas, that otherwise might never have been seen, that belong together, that are held together. So what we're doing really is redeeming something, restoring something. So this sense of healing or mending that can happen when I hear you, when we meet each other on the page, it's a kind of restoration, no? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely. Mm. And then it feels that that restoration is a personal experience, but then travels beyond that sensibility of self, and also extends into the natural world as well. So profoundly, where it's that understanding of not a separation from the land, in one sense a separation, or at least in terms of time now and the way we live in some symbiosis with it, but also the extension of the land with the body. And that's, I feel like, and that's something with your work that's so profound for us both. I can definitely speak for us both in this, is it feels that the quintessence with your writing, it's the quintessence of that for me, is the ability to just feel through your words this overwhelming sense of interconnectedness and this extrapolation of these layers. It's something that is such a huge thing for me, is this notion of layers of consciousness, layers of existence, between the seen, the unseen, between, us living and the people we've lost. And it's your work journey straight into the quintessence of these things, the ability where you can feel, after reading your work, like this altercation of feeling so present in the voice of everything around us that is there but can't always be heard. Or, for different reasons, we fluctuate between being able to hear that voice and it maybe being more distant. And your work, your poems, your books, they always bring it into such a proximity. Yeah, it's really
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. Also with it being in bulk today, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Oh yes, absolutely. The midpoint. Here we
Yeah.
are. Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
it feels like such a perfect time.
It does.
That reclamation, it's been a really beautiful time to be absorbed in your world in that way.
Yeah, and what a profound day to be speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say too that exactly, what you were saying, that it's not about the self, it's what's beyond the self.
Mm.
And so and everything that brings us to a present moment, everything that brings us to this present moment. Anyway, I don't know. Are we having our conversation? Are we? Do we need to begin again? Are we? I'm
No,
not
it's
sure.
going great. It's just
Oh, okay.
free flowing conversation between two artists, and
Lovely. Okay.
yes.
I didn't know whether we were
I mean,
officially beginning our
I
conversation.
haven't actually begun with the questions that we have. Should we begin, Jack?
Oh yes, please. Yes.
Yep.
Sorry if I didn't make that clear enough.
No, that's fine. So Anne, I'll start at the beginning. So you referenced in your most recent book, Held, Darwin's daily ritual, as to how he'd walk a number of times around his garden using pebbles to keep a record of how many circuits he'd made. During your act of writing, do you yourself have a personal ritual that you adhere to, whether it be a sense of routine or even the presence of a talisman of some sort?
I work at home, which is I feel very fortunate, and I have a very crowded workspace full of piles of books, piles of research, and I just sort of burrow in there. I have 2 children, so I worked at night for many years in the middle of the night because I was going into dark places of history, and children pick up everything. So I wanted, when they were asleep, I could do that work, and I didn't feel I was that they were anywhere near that kind of darkness that I was working with, trying to understand. So that's very hard to work through the night always. So I've tried to adapt as they have grown, but I still find myself needing that absolutely those tranquil hours. I work in silence because I'm listening to the characters, I'm listening to the language, I'm listening to what the characters are listening to. I'm listening to the landscape they are in. And so I need that silence. So that's really it's just a very spare, receptive place. So yeah. Do you have a ritual before you begin?
I think it can change. I think I've had different rituals over different periods of time. Sometimes before recording. So, for example, at the moment, the work we're doing, it's all on tape. It's all analog, on old tape. So it's that transfer of something I feel very strongly about when it comes to capturing a sound, is capturing the emotion of the sound. Similar to the photography I do with analog, it's that alchemy of the light itself being physically transferred and captured on the film. There's something very just mystical about it, and I feel that when it comes to the sonic realm, it's about capturing, literally transposing that emotion, and therefore you're in the take. It's the one take. You know, we're together in that take, and that's how it exists. And I think there's been differences of rituals, sometimes burning very specific herbs before entering space, sometimes only undergoing that act, sometimes in candlelight. I think it fluctuates. It's depending on intuition as well as to what's calling itself. Sometimes immersion in a river, before or after. Yeah,
Certainly by way of, I guess, process. We're speaking about going back to tape. I think as very sensitive beings, we chose to migrate out into the middle of nowhere in the countryside. I think because we're, as artists and creatives, we are very much. I think our music speaks of this. It speaks of and evokes the landscapes in which we inhabit, and we move through. With what you're speaking about is about that necessity of silence, of hearing the landscapes that your characters inhabit. For me, for instance, as someone recording the music, the process of recording it, it's the process of actually the interface between myself and the music. It's very much perturbed by a computer screen when I've been working on a computer. For me, I have a very, in terms of how I work creatively, that process has become a bit of a ritual in terms of the way in which how the process works. But for us, a huge part of it has been the shedding and going back to a technology where instead of using our eyes, because I just do it, I'm so, as soon as a computer's in front of me, I'm visualizing the music. I'm not listening to the music so much. So that in itself has borne lots of different rituals and different means by which we create, just through that necessity for us of getting back the core, the quintessence of sound again. So that's a really beautiful thing, being in touch with the time of recorded music, that the sober line on the fundamental sense that makes that music, the audible.
I think one ritual I do actually have every day that just really hit me between the eyes is every single morning on my typewriter I write out my dreams every morning. I think I have done for about maybe 13 years now. So I have folders of them, but that is a devout ritual for me, is that time of waking, and for however long it takes in the utmost detail, just transposing that realm of the subconscious in the morning. That is a daily ritual.
There's so much. I mean, ritual is all about, the threshold, right? So you're stepping into a space, you are recognizing a space, the existence of this space. You are allowing others to join you in this space, which are concerts. I mean, I would love to experience you live, to hear you live. But just through the films, the sense of the space that you make is so powerful. And, a book tries to do this too. I'm very conscious of being, holding the reader close with me through those hundreds of pages. So this idea of threshold is so interesting, because also this whole, the way that Held speaks about death, and where, how do the dead, how are the dead in the world? We think of them as inhabiting clothing, what's left behind, objects, but landscapes, they're in landscapes as well, not only places that they know and loved, but in another way they can come into where we are. And so much of what we do is creating a space to recognize the value of what can't be proven, what we can't explain, what this whole last century has been telling us is not of value. So it's a way of saying, we must recognize and value what we cannot prove. And so and creating a language for that, in the face of a very loud language, is just telling us that it has no value.
Yeah, and it's remarkable, isn't it? Because those realms of the unseen, because they can't be quantified or held in a type of a physical state, they are, like you said, they are put in a place of obtaining no value. And you see that historically with, a lot of the indigenous tribes just being, taken off of the land, and that connection severed, which for me is one of the wisest connections, is that severance between the root of it and the people that are one with it, because those elements of those philosophies and that connection, because they can't be quantified and held and proven, it's disregarded. It's those layers. It's so interesting, because exempted humans, it's that layer of the unseen that actually unifies everything. It's a language that almost interconnects everything as one, and that is predominantly within the unseen. I feel like it's the power of, whether it be through imagery or words or sound, it's again, I guess coming back to the word that Solitude was using, but it's this compelling need to, it's a language, it's a language to almost like as a vessel, just communicate that unseen. Because something I believe so strongly is that it starts with feeling. Like it's a huge thing for me with this is feeling. The big thing when we share live, what we do is how feelings rise. They're like islands that either people are very connected with and in touch with, or they're not always aware of. And they can rise and just fully embrace and sometimes overwhelm people, but it starts with feeling. Like when someone feels a spark emerges, and that feeling then transfers into something that someone, I guess it's a type of seeing. Yeah.
And also, it's those intricate moments in life and in landscapes. The recognition of wind through a lover's hair, or the sound swirling of the river passing by. It's that you're speaking about landscape. It's that thing of how does one imbue themselves in the landscape or within the things around us? It takes a degree of presence. That degree of presence is we're constantly we're battling this idea and notion of presence. In a world seemingly that's but it's a physical world that's moving into I guess in a sense we're in this inquisition to evolve, take evolution to our own hands, to create technologies, all of these things that do actually largely sever that connection between us and the natural world. It's that reclamation, this importance of being in nature, or being in a landscape, or being in a city, or being wherever it is. It's those moments that you speak of, where you're present within those, and not just that you're taking from it, but also it feels to me like it's a beautiful exchange. Like I had this the other day. When I was running, I was just that feeling that I had. I'd lain in bed for a few hours reading Hell, and it put me in a state that is of such hypersensitivity that I was picking up, of course, the sounds of wind, but just these very subtle nuances, and I was having exchanges in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have had I not put the time in to sit, be with the book, to exercise and massage those sensibilities myself in that stillness, to then take that and do that on the landscape. And so I feel in a way when you're able to do such a thing within your environment, you then find that you can leave a part of yourself. And this, I feel to be very much the same with huge degrees of suffering as well. Speaking about other parts of and facets of your work with future pieces, and how that goes the opposite. In the other way of opening, usually just the most profoundly devastating kind of fundamentals to human sensibilities and emotions that then can be pressed and put onto landscapes as well. We found that when we were moving through Europe in our van, certain spaces, certain forests that we would move through. One in particular in the Czech Republic, it was on the border, and it was a beautiful day, really stunning day, and we'd gone down to this absolutely serene lake with this lovely boathouse, but something about it was so strong and profound there that we felt this really intense feeling that bore to a point for us where we ended up getting into our van. We had to leave. It was so overpowering. We looked into it a little bit.
It was when we came back a few years later, wasn't it?
Yeah, that we were speaking to it. Yeah, Yeah, precisely. When we spoke to a friend of ours, and he spoke a little bit about it being a prison of war, where the prisoners of war were sent to at the time. And it's just moments like that where you have this dualistic nature of, like I was speaking about, viewing ourselves in our surroundings. But how obviously that comes from, like, it can come from intense emotion as well. And it's that really beautiful passage and carriage I find of the intensity of emotion and how we can view ourselves on the landscape. Yeah.
I'm very glad you said what you just said. Yeah, to have that experience is extremely powerful. And humans have felt this always, right? That and it's like I've been saying this the last few months with this book, that it's like hearing, it's like seeing, it's feeling the wind, our senses. These are our senses too. You go into that landscape, it needs no more explanation than we would explain hearing, seeing, feeling the wind. And so and once you experience that, I think it's incredibly transformative. Your relationship to place is transformative, to memory, to what remains. You can't look at history in the same way. You can't look at the material world in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, a door of perception opens, and whichever point in your life, once you've walked through it, you've walked through it. Definitely. Actually, I'm gonna jump down here because of what we're speaking about now. Yeah, I'm gonna traverse around the order of our questions. So I've got here, so I believe that to write poetry is a sense of rendering oneself to the sacred, the ineffable type of prayer or personal ritual, navigation through the subconscious. I guess similar to how archaeologists, they excavate layers of earth, or how the astrologer does the same with the sky. Do you believe that through the act of writing that we are able to bridge across the dimensions of the known and communicate or interact with the unknown?
Yes. It's the shortest answer. Yes, no, absolutely. There's a sort of like a gradation of how people feel this works. I mean, science feels it works in a certain way. Artists feel it works in a certain way. There's a gradation of it, but I don't think I think it's inescapable. An archaeologist, as a scientist, will unearth an object, but immediately, I don't think there's. I really don't think there's any description of an archaeological discovery that I've read where the excitement of holding something that was held by someone long dead, centuries before, thousands of years before, hasn't been incredibly moving to that human encountering it. And you are something is being transferred from the past to the present. Something is being awakened. whether you can say, well, it's okay, it's awakened in scientific theory, or it's awakened in imagination, or it's awakened in something else, some feeling that you can't even express. But everything, yes, I believe that language is also has this ability to transport us, not only in mind but also in feeling, of course. And it's both those things that situate us where we are, situate us morally, situate us in terms of belief, situate us in our bodies, heart and mind, feeling and thought. So it's we get back to ritual in a way, or threshold in a way, because how do you I'm very aware of, how do you use language? We use language all the time. So how do you make this, how do you separate the language of what the book does from other language, from the noise of other language? How do you, the way a prayer separates language from the noise of other language, the way lyrics separate us from the noise of other language. So, yeah, I'll get back to excavation. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we see and re-see, and see and re-see, and see and re-see. So these are the layers too. And it can take years to understand a moment, a single moment, years to understand a gesture, years to understand what it means, what it meant, what it means for someone to cross from one side of the table to another, or to leave a room, or to avert their eyes, or, so it's an endless process of digging down into these layers.
Mm. Yeah, certainly. How would you, can you speak a dream on, how within these feelings and this, so we're speaking here about physical, in terms of our relationship with our work, our relationship with our surroundings. How would you, do you believe there to be, speaking about a threshold, do you believe there to be a severance between the physical realm that we kind of, obviously we're going beyond that, but do you believe there to be a kind of a severance between reality and, say, for instance, dreaming? I know you bring a lot of that into your work. Would you say, how is it that that kind of dreaming itself, how does that
What do you mean by severance?
like to sever, in terms of, well, I guess in terms of or just very simply to be mutually exclusive, or to be separate, do you see, like, how I guess the question I guess I'm asking within, like, the realms of dreams is, do you find, like, within the physical world there to be a tie, a thread between the two?
Oh, without question. In hell, there's talk about change of state, from liquid to solid, from liquid to gas. In nature, of course, everything is change of state. So, and in death, the lines he is, he was. So yes, I think absolutely. I think of it as a change of state. And so when you describe waking and writing your dreams every morning, it's a wonderful thing to do. And you are in a way but harvesting or hauling in from the sea of sleep. All those images, all of that way of thinking, all of that into this world, into your waking world. That's a beautiful thing to do. And I imagine it's also, sometimes painful. And so what happens in the act of writing it down? Does this become source for work? Does it, or is it simply just needing to bring that world into this world?
I think for me, when he was saying change of state, it's something I definitely resonate with, because I do a lot of research in streaming as well, and throughout different periods of time and different cultures, how dreams are regarded and embedded into the cultures and the relationship between the seen and the unseen. And I think for me, with dreaming, it's a language between the conscious and the subconscious, but also it goes beyond that. For me, it's traversing a space that is exempt of time as well. And something I've found over the years is that my relationship between these two realms has, almost like the infinity symbol, the space between them has strengthened into a type of cord, like type of umbilical cord, if you will. And I think it's a really imperative part of being conscious for me, is that act of registering and really existing and paying huge significance to these realms. I think dreams and death, or the philosophical notions that could be of death, I think there's a connection there as well. And I find it's also, in terms of the inspiration for the work that we do, I find that to especially with writing, and the typewriter is a really big part of that the way the typewriter acts in delivering a word as well. I feel the record keeping of the dreams, it's also exercising the subconscious and therefore bringing the intuition into this glowing state. That when we then, because a lot of our work comes from improvisation and just falling into a realm, and just, again, the word landscape, just falling into a realm or a landscape and basically just walking it, but not leading it, being led. I guess a balance of the two. But I find, for me, again, an element of keeping the dreams is becoming familiar with that space and really understanding it. And I think for me, it's been a huge part of my life. And so like I lost my father to suicide 11 years ago, which I speak very openly about at all the performances we do as well, because I think that our relationship with death is a very interesting one, and especially in the West, it's very it's concealed, hugely concealed, but there's infinite, as well as a huge amount of pain. There's infinite possibility, and there's the understanding, which you mentioned a lot, with that dichotomy of absence and presence, and you have to fully absorb and listen and exist with one to comprehend the weight and the value of the other. And for me, it threw me into this blurring of all of these different realms, these different coexisting spaces of conscious, subconscious, all of the age-old archetypes and symbols that reemerge over thousands of years of, light and dark, life and death, these dichotomies. And I think that space for me, that time for me, I just fully sat and listened to everything, every lesson, every instinct. Like if my body needed to just go into the sea, I would go into the sea, even if it was fully clothed, which it happened a few times. Just that immediate act of the body, also the language of the body. The language of the body, they speak about it. I'm sure you're familiar with the dreaming body, that they speak about a lot through layers of shamanism, but it's the language that your body also has exempted your mind. And I think dreaming is a lesson in again, it's a lesson in the unseen, in all of these layers that exist within us, but orbit us all of the time. I think for me, dreams are just an incredible transportation and almost like fiber, like sinew between them. Yeah.
Well, it's not just absolutely, and it's not just the mind, of course. It's the sleeping body. I mean, it's your sleeping body that's experiencing these things.
Yeah.
And we think of singers, we think of writers, we think of artists speaking, expressing, but really we're listening. And the best work is work that listens, so that when it's being spoken, it's also listening to who is hearing it. Yeah.
It's interesting. In the time we've been out here, we've been experimenting with when we did a project. It was all centered around kind of looking into facets of kind of the Neolithic age. It was a really interesting kind of transitionary period in human history, and we spent some time going around and kind of traversing up into Scotland and going to these sites and rituals. And it was all born from our kind of our insight and our fascination with the subconscious for us, and that journey, that extrapolation of quintessence, whatever it is, the journey into oneself and listening, actually, like exactly as you say, whether it's speaking earlier on about this notion, Rick Rubin speaks about it, and it's very kind of, it's, I guess, recurrent in lots of Eastern philosophy, is this notion of the source within, us with our antennae kind of drawing from the source. But really interestingly, we've been, because a big part of what we do in some of the live performances more recently has been using the drum. So this is, it was a really interesting book that we were looking at. It kind of marries archaeology and I guess degrees of theosophy, or even it's by a guy called Paul Devereux. And he speaks a lot about the kind of sonic archaeology. So instead of looking at archaeology just from a lens of kind of seeing something and looking at lifestyle, the inherent lifestyle of it, was actually looking at structures. So, for instance, taking Neolithic structures and thinking about ways in which those spaces, how they were used sonically. And interestingly enough, it kind of evoked this insight and this interest for me into kind of this cerebral exploration of sound. So obviously as a producer, I've been looking into this notion of binaural beats. So creating resonant frequencies within one's brain. And it's very kind of scientific. We use it a lot in different degrees of kind of trauma therapy. We also use it visually as well, but sonically, it's about imbuing a certain waves. And you can do this because obviously we can't. So our ears, we can only perceive certain frequencies. We can't perceive frequencies really low down, but you can evoke them, and you can evoke them through the use of without getting too scientific, using headphones, for instance. having two sounds, and they're very similar, but they're only, and the discrepancy between the frequencies is what's then, it creates a standing wave in the brain. And so in doing so, we explored this notion of like degrees of meditation and all these things that for me were so nebulous. I was speaking about nebulous. It was something I never had any comprehension of, and I'm very much I'm quite a heady human. This is why Rebecca and I are an amazing team. Is that Rebecca very much lives in her soul. I have the many that live very much in my head. But it's been a really interesting exploration more recently, and it's very simple. We've been using a big drum, and we've been beating it at a certain frequency rate, which is at 4 hertz, so it's 4 cycles per second. And scientifically, if you look into the science, it evokes certain or resonances within the brain that themselves can put you into certain states.
Well, it's the same brainwave as when you're in REM sleep.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So it's evoking like brainwaves that you otherwise would say sleeping. And what's been really interesting to kind of bring it back full circle is this notion that we've been doing this for some time. It's an age-old ritual.
Oh yeah,
shamanic ritual.
thousands of years old.
That it's really interesting because for someone like me, I've always, and I was speaking a little bit about this with you, Jack, as you were talking about shamanism. It's always been something I'm so fascinated with, and I've always observed from the outside a little. I've always been interested in it and understood degrees of comprehensions of it within, I guess, on my work, in terms of the way it moves and the way it has moved individuals. But I've never myself truly journeyed. And just last night, we had we do these drum rituals where we hit the cycle for 10 minutes. It was really interesting in that it was the first time I fully just gave myself to this drum in such a way, into this hypergonic state, that I began to journey through I'm not going to embarrass myself and talk about what, in my mind, I think it's a spatial cortex, but it's part of our brain that people speak about that we've accessed and used thousands and thousands of years for these journeys. But I think I do also believe it's quite aligned with the realms of dreaming. And it was just a really interesting insight for me yesterday is within this drum journey where I've always seen kind of odd shapes. All of a sudden, I gave myself to this realm that was so all-encompassing and so beyond my body that I felt my body literally lifting, rising from the bed. And my whole body was, after actually, I could feel it was very tense because I had no control of it, but I was kind of lifted into the state. And I guess what's really interesting for me is it's like the first, in my whole life, my first conscious experience of the subconscious and of the dream body, of this realm that I know we all go into. We all whether people speak about near-death experiences, all these things that are laced within the fabric of humanity, and not just humanity, but nature and that of the animal kingdom. It was just it's been a really interesting voyage into this realm that I feel it's so universal. It's so universal, and it's just a really interesting, for me also. It's been a really interesting journey because, again, coming back to that notion of creation and coming back to the idea of sleep, all these facets. It's just a really interesting insight into how we can consciously there are certain ways in which we can access these realms within our physical bodies, within our sleeping bodies, that do speak of an age old time. It's really powerful. I'm really interested in learning ways of distilling that within creation on a conscious level, not just such a subconscious level. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's so interesting. And I'm wondering, when you perform publicly and you're using the drum, has that changed what those performances has it changed those performances for you, just in the use of it, are you how has it changed what you do on stage? Because it's an interesting thing. You are still channeling. The work is doing the work, and you are still channeling what you're channeling. But you are surrounded by listeners who are with you, but there is a consciousness of that. So what is that? What is your relationship to the audience as you're performing? And has the addition of the drum strengthened one part of what that performing is? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think for me, so firstly with the audience and the relationship with the audience, obviously there's an awareness of you being the person creating the sound, creating that world, and people have come to experience that world. But a huge thing for us is actually the merging of that. It's something recently with this tour that we've been undergoing, the Entombing the Infinite tour. It's why we have been setting it up in the round, is the circle, such sacred, very ancient, one of the most powerful shapes. There's something about when people are sat in the round, it creates a circuit, it creates almost like a conduction of energy and feeling that is just powerful. It ricochets through the room, and I think there's a I always say it's like the room is being charged. There's such a sharing between listener and performer. Even the word performer, but is sometimes doesn't always go with me. But there's such a unity in that, in the something I always feel, which is why I'm always very when St. Peter's musical, born from maybe particular emotions or particular experiences, I'm always very open to sharing that, because I really believe wholeheartedly that a huge thing for me is about creating a space where people just feel fully able to be present and with whatever comes up, because a lot of the time for people, a lot comes up that I don't think they are experiencing, and sometimes that they haven't allowed to come up, like indefinitely, since a particular experience or something. And holding a space that is so tender, where you allow all of those elements of vulnerability to become strength and to be felt as strength, and then to travel around the room in that way where it's a complete unity. For me, there's a complete emergence of everyone in that room in a charge. I think the drum for me has been hugely powerful for me, because it's like an anchor. Because during the act of the music, I often it's a mix for me. I look every single person in the eye, or I make my best attempt to look every single person in the eye. And it's interesting, during different points of the set, I can feel sometimes this energy somewhere in the room where it's like I'm just drawn to a person. And it's interesting because it's often periods of grief or elements of the music that revolve around loss, the beauty within that, and all the dimensions within that. And it's interesting because it's often at that point I just feel it, and then I'll have this eye contact. It's this sharing of eye contact with someone for sometimes the duration of the whole song, and it's very emotional connection between the both of us. And I feel I traverse between that and having my eyes closed and just dissolving, really, like dissolving into a different space. And often then when I open my eyes at the end, it's like, I think I often shake my head because it's like a coming back into the room. And the drum for me is this, it's like it's like an anchor between all of those spaces and all of those things. It's because the drum is so felt. It pulsates, it resonates through your whole body, and the drum itself feels to be its own entity. And it has its own history, its own connection, its own power, and it feels like a real bit like with your heart, just in, just the mechanism of the heart continually pumping blood around our bodies, without that conscious element. The drum feels like the pulse. It feels so powerful.
Do you find when you're writing your poetry, you have anchors?
Yeah.
Oh yes. I was just going to say that the drum is, we're talking about threshold in this conversation. The drum is a membrane, right? So it is a literal threshold, metaphorically and literally, between two things. And I love the whole idea that you meet with your listeners in a circle. Of course, it's no energy is lost. It's not being directed in a single direction or even back and forth. It is constantly being renewed. So yeah, it's beautiful. And eye contact, yes. I whenever when the venue is small enough that I can do this, every time, even when I can't see the people, if the hall is big and I can't see the audience, I always begin simply by trying to take in as many people as I can, quiet, silent, visually connecting with people who are there. So I very much understand that. It grounds everyone. It brings us all into the same moment. Poetry. You asked me whether what was you had a very good question.
I asked if you've an anchor when it comes to
yeah,
much like we speak about the drum in this anchoring.
The anchor comes usually from the rhythm of a phrase or two words together, or even a single word, which then the whole rhythm of a poem comes from that single rhythm. And an image or metaphor, when something is also something else, and together makes that sum of parts bigger than it is, more than it is, truer than it is, separately. That is also a kind of rhythm between two things. And I guess, yeah, the heartbeat is that, right? It's always that. So maybe we're just built for call and response. We're built for two things making a third thing, which is the human animal. So the anchor comes from an image, comes from a single word, the syllables in a single word, or several words, which leads you into that transcendent or transforming place. where you are in tune with something that, and being able to hear something that you need to hear.
Mm.
Hmm. The concerts must be incredible for the audience and for you. And I think the times that we can gather in this way is so precious, so important. So much an act of hope. Really crucial. And it's not that it doesn't happen through a screen, and it's not that it doesn't happen on the page of a book, but it is really tremendous to be in our bodies with other people in a space. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess so much of your work is, you know, you spent how many, it was decades writing these pieces, and of course with Hell, I know it was, you know, just by way of virtue of the research and the time that you take in writing and researching. How, presumably, so much of your work, all of it, is written in. You speak about silence, you know, solitude, these two fundamentals. Would you say that subsequently you do yourself live quite a solitary existence?
Yes, I do. I was going to say, it's interesting, uh, um, this idea of meeting in a physical space. I really do try and create that on the page as much as I can, or within the whole of a book, so that there is some kind of physicality that is never far from what you're reading ever.
Yeah.
And that's if I can't be with you in a room, then I can be with you on the page in that way as closely as I can. So yeah, I mean, it's very hard to retain that solitude in the world, in the city, it's extremely difficult. And so I guess the middle of the night became a way to do that. So that the day was always a 24-hour day, not a 12-hour day. And well, what it is in the work of your dreaming, it is also a 24-hour day for you. But I think we're in a world that, again, doesn't value or regard. People try, but we succumb to a kind of having to feel we have to carve out our solitude instead of embracing it and learning how to balance your life with it as part of your life. That solitude, that renewal, that time that you need, that we are carving out the space, we are reclaiming it, we are taking it back. So there's something wrong with even how we think about it, right? It should be integrated in what our day is. We sleep, we need that time, we need different kinds of time. But of course, work has, beginning from the Industrial Revolution, beginning from the factory, beginning, for people who worked the land had a rhythm that understood the integration of darkness and light and time. But the factory, of course, imposed this false segregation of when you work, when you see your children, when you eat, when you sleep. So that control over everything that you talk about, the importance of the body, we have just had that taken from us. I can't say we surrendered it because it was against our will in many cases, most cases. But this has become something that has put us so out of balance. And we, to the point now that do people think before they speak?
Mm.
You know, that thinking has become reflexive. You have something to say, you text it, you post it, you press the button. How much of thought has become a reflexive thing? So can we call it thought? Maybe we call it opinion, not thought. It's just entered into our lives so fundamentally. We don't even notice it, that how drastically we are controlled. So in working, I try to integrate it into how I live, and sometimes it means that there are days where you hardly have any time at all. You have 10 minutes, or you have a half an hour, or you have an hour, or you have 15 minutes, and I used to try resist that. I used to feel so upset if I couldn't have enough time to really sit down and do what I need to do. And now I think, well, okay, I've got 10 minutes. I'm going to really be present in those 10 minutes. And it's so much better because once you get into this adversarial relationship to time in your own day, your own body, it's really not a good thing.
I guess also, because, speaking about like the Industrial Revolution, we're kind of at this epoch now that's even more monumental in certain respects to our lives and the implications on our lives and our day-to-day. Obviously, with the rise of the internet, but then with this technological advancement in, say, artificial intelligence and the repercussions we can't even comprehend on our cognition and how that's going to affect us neurologically. I'm interested to know for you, obviously, and for us in a sense, I think about being a child when I used to create and make. The kind of person I was a kid who had the privilege of being on the street on my bicycle, playing with other kids,
skateboarding off of bus shelters,
skateboarding off of bus shelters, doing all manner of things that would, nowadays, I think, the other day we said, I was flabbergasted. I saw 2 children playing on the streets.
That was a while ago.
But all
I
these,
remember that exact moment.
I guess what's interesting is, like, we're speaking a little bit about this with Jack about, down where we are here, there are some places that have these old cave paintings. There's it's a really beautiful indication of the kind of the lifespan of humanity, and it goes between the thousands and thousands of years where very little happened. But there was a degree of sustainability in the way that we interacted. There was a wisdom to the way that we interacted with nature. Beautiful thing in Pigger, John Berger, who's a friend of yours, speaks about this notion of community and how they related and how they conversed with nature. I guess when you had the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden there was this huge shift in the paradigm of how we live, how commerce, all of these things, but there was still degrees of those fundamentals that make up the fabric of our cognition that we've had some hunter-gatherers, with the way we massage our bodies in terms of the exercise that we do, and the way that we massage our neurology with the conversations and the actual face-to-face interactions that we have. And if you look at, so we were all here. We were lucky enough to live in a time where, as children, we would grow up and we'd be exercising those facets of what it was to be human that we've known for thousands and thousands of years. And I guess that it's we're falling into this new paradigm now, where children, the generation, number of generations that are kind of that aren't actually using certain tendencies that are baked into our evolution and baked into our sense of being. One being that degree of communion, actual, like the way in which we exchange and how we speak. And I guess then taking that ever so slightly further, I was just interested to know for you, how do you feel this if you imagine to be 18 years old now and coming into the world of writing and the world of literature, particularly a world such as yours that's so centered around those degrees of stillness for you, to be able to evoke and come to the places that you come to when you write, or to have that space to do the monumental amounts of research that you do. How would you reconcile that as an 18-year-old writer in today's society? How would that affect your writing? And do you feel that you would still have taken would you still have taken that direction that you have in terms of your work?
Well, I think that what you say is very interesting about we have a memory of a time before computers, before this dominance of the screen. We remember that. I'm assuming you, yes, you are old enough to remember this.
Yeah.
But these generations now have no memory of what that life was like. It really is a profound change. And I know from the age of my children, my one child is, grew up, got into high school before it all started. The other's younger, and he has, a smaller, shorter memory of what that was, and younger than that, no memory. I think it's it's a very complicated question, because it has changed so much in so many ways. The culture of how people feel about writing, how quickly you're supposed to produce, how people think of careers. I mean, this was, for me, absolutely, a book takes as long as it takes. I mean, it's unheard of to take 10 years to write a book. Unheard of to take 20 years to write a book. But in fact, you only have one chance at that thing, at that book, at what that book is trying to do, the task of that book. So and the more complicated it is, or the more the more rigorous you are, and I have to be rigorous to the limit myself, because otherwise, what's the point? And there's something that I need to understand. I need to learn, and hopefully find that redemption that I can. Only then would I bring that work to others. If I had went for 20 years and could not find that place, I wouldn't publish. I just wouldn't do it. So I am maybe not typical of what that industry is. There's a lot of pressure, I think, on young writers to fit into what they think the industry wants, what they think it expects. I think no matter when I lived, I would be completely resistant, or perhaps even oblivious to it. Perhaps even naive about it. But so I think I imagine that I would be who I am, no matter when I lived. Who knows? But I do think quite seriously that there are ways in which how we live, the change of how we live, we have no idea the depth of the transformation of these last couple of decades. We can't even begin to imagine what that has done. And So I think the more we speak of the before time, the more we speak of the things that we've been speaking of, the more important it is, because our bodies have not changed. Our bodies, our minds are being changed, their brains are being rewired, but we are still essentially what we have always been. And there's that ancient self. I think we have to acknowledge it. I think we have to value it. We're mortal, right? Our mortality is part of this, and this virtual immortality is really something very, very profoundly different. And remembering our materiality, or our material mortality is really important. It's our scale of, what matters. It's our scale of attention. It's our scale of how we love, how we relate to another human being. So yeah, it's a lot. And so what we remember, what we speak of, and where is the spirit but in the body? Where is the spirit but in the material? It's where it is. And so yeah, we have to keep bringing ourselves back to this. I think people are trying to do that now. And I think that younger generation also is aware that they're not so impressed with the tech in the same way that the generation that where it was new, the new thing. They don't have that. It's not the same. It's not the same.
I think we also, I guess, we play ping pong with our parents' generation a little bit. Like, where
Yeah.
we live out in Wales, and we have, some of our most esoteric friends, their children are, they you might find, and I'm not going to use any particular examples, the real examples, but I'm going to paraphrase and say, like, one might be a clairvoyant, and they might have a child who's an estate agent, and it's just interesting, because I guess maybe there is that sense that, generation, whatever it is, I don't think generation Z, X, that comes next. Maybe there is a sense. I mean, there is that sense that, because I heard a friend of mine who has a kid who's 18, and he's just found punk. He's like, screw going. I don't want to go and sit on I want to go out there and make a noise and be in the fray of it and be in a mosh pit all of a sudden, because that's so vintage, And it's I don't know. It's just a funny thing. So maybe there is that notion that we will somehow. There is that. We're already feeling it with in terms of how we interface with our audiences and how the direction we're beginning to take. That's for two quite slow, cerebral people, sensitive people, that contemporary model as to how creation is meant to be, on the industry level, how it should manifest, how it should be born. It's something that just it doesn't align with us, and we've realized that it didn't take us very long.
No.
And so
I wanted to ask you a question, Anne, on what you were saying about listening in adjacent to Solitude, and how you were saying that the length of time it takes for a piece of your work to be whole, I guess, is the length of time. And if the work hasn't come through in the intention of how it's meant to come through, you wouldn't publish it. Spending with the books and with your books, spending that amount of time with those characters, those entities, like years and years, and especially in whether it be the hours of night or in the silence, like that proximity with those individuals that you form, do you, I guess, like the first part of the question is, when that work is finished, or when it presents itself, or when you choose it to be finished, is there a sense of loss with the space in your life that you've been sharing with those people? That's the first part of the question.
Well, those people never leave me.
Yeah.
So they're no. And they are they're a way for me to understand something. So I have been able to understand something through them, through how they see the world, through their need, through their necessities, soul, their soul contract with the world. So and that gives me courage. It gives me, I'm less alone also in having them to be with me into something that is very hard to look at. So I don't feel a loss. I feel it, what's really quite powerful is that a book doesn't really feel finished until, I have the response of a reader, someone who will write to me or speak to me, and I suddenly understand that those characters now are living in someone else. And there's a tremendous relief feeling that I'm no longer the only person who knows that story or has to tell that story, and that their story has been heard. So that's really something that is important to me. I'm very grateful for that. Oh, yeah.
And the second, in connection with that, is, have they ever appeared in your dreams?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you sometimes, that's the only way I'll hear them, in other words, I haven't been hearing them. I haven't been hearing them well enough, so they come to me in my sleep. You haven't been paying attention. Here, we're going to really make sure you understand this. So yes. Also, it's like with, we the whole thing is that a character, you're not making a character do something. You are listening to what that character needs to do, needs to understand. And so it is a reciprocal, it feels very reciprocal when I'm writing. And it's always a way of making sure that it's very important to me to question my assumptions. I question them to the limit, because I want to be able to trust what I write, and that's the only thing worth offering to a reader, something you can trust with your life. I hope that you can trust with your life. So if I test my assumptions to their limit, I can trust them. I can trust a statement that I make, anything that I say. And so, character also will insist that I understand something through their eyes. And that's another way of, again, making sure that I'm not turning away from something that I need to look at, that I'm not assuming something that I haven't really gone down to the core of. So the relationship with the characters are reciprocal, and they continue. Those characters are still in me.
And like absence for you, the notion of absence, does it have a matter? Like what? I guess yeah, it's like a bit like how this word time. You know, we have this word and everything that we connect with this word, but actually, time almost doesn't have a matter. Or like, what is absence to you?
Well, absence is proof of presence. I mean, we speak of limits. There's the very notion of a limit, the definition of a limit is that there's something beyond it.
Mm.
So absence is always in relation to presence. We don't feel an absence unless there has been a presence, unless there is a presence. And I think we experienced that we think of the dead, we associate with memory always, but the dead, as I say in hell, the dead can tell us by show us that they were present by becoming absent. So you feel the absence, you understood they were present, they had been present. So yeah, it's always both things. Asserting the reality of both things. One asserts the reality of the other.
Do you like in with the notion of death as well? That's it's very like prevalent in a lot of your work. I guess the molecular and the infinite within that. What kind of a threshold is death for you?
Well, I think anyone who's experienced that absence and that presence can never see death as something something finite. The first line of the book, we know that life is finite. Why should we believe that death lasts forever? Yeah, so that's I share that with that character very much. And it's the mystery. It's not mystical. It's simply mystery that we will never we can never define, we can never understand, we can never assert, we can never prove. And thank goodness for that. It can't be commodified. It can't be used in any way. It simply is, and it cannot be reduced. Yeah.
And in that, also on the back of that as well, that mystery, that sense of mystery, the presence of mystery. Do you find poetry for you, is poetry a sense of traveling, stepping into that mystery? Is it a sense of reaching into something that's familiar or that's something that's unfamiliar for you?
It's both. It's maybe a conversation between both those things, and metaphor does that, obviously. It also it never answers, it always asks. And the best writing, I think, never answers, it always asks. So and a poem is a very potent version of that. So you are, even if you're moved just a millimeter from where you were before you began the poem, after you read it, you're a millimeter somewhere else. That's a good thing. It's opening up a space for thinking about something that maybe you couldn't find a way to, your brain couldn't find a way to think about it. It opens something. And a good poem hopefully keeps opening that, right? And opens other things. So, and I think that's the mastery of it, is that it can open the same thing, but it continues to open new things.
Right. And on the back of that sense of opening, like your collaboration with John Berger on Rail Tracks, again, just profoundly poignant. And that opening, were you opening spaces for each other to step into? And that process of that call and response must have been very, very interesting. Like that world that is the unseen and is so personal, and that fusion you together. That can you, yeah.
Oh, well, I miss him every day, and we had an extraordinary intimacy, extraordinary relationship, and from even before we met, there was always a sense that we were walking into a space that was already there. We were just we walked into the place that we were meant to walk into. So yes, it was wonderful to write that together. We all spoke almost every day. We corresponded all the time. So it was a way of, in a way that was a kind of fragment of a very, of 35-year conversation. And so that interplay, in fact, lines were, he says things that I wrote, I say things he wrote. We, it just became, it was a dialogue, but it was a dialogue that was also a single thing. So yeah, that was a great pleasure. I love that there's a kind of a record for what that long conversation, that lifelong conversation was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, okay, the sense of the essence becoming something corporate in its own right. And something I think about, it's with sound as well as, how sound remains after we become the silence. How it's an interesting, the sound that we can, the worlds that we can enter where that person no longer, they've become, a sense of silence, and that silence, and the infinite in that silence. But it's interesting. It's like to have an essence of something that remains, like you're saying, that must be, I mean, obviously the essence of that length of the friendship is within you and your body and your mind and everything. But then, having something like that is profoundly useful.
Yeah, much like the you speak about the looking up at the stars, seeing the light of these stars, but knowing so many of them are no longer there. You see the light, the stars gone, but it still shines. Beautiful, such a beautiful metaphor.
What do you think is one of the greatest things that writing has taught you?
Oh, well, that's such a good question. I think that, we think of the writer as being solitary, but in fact, it is a time when really we are most not alone. We are absolutely connected to not only where we are, our own bodies, our own place, our own landscape, but to every other human, animal, every other mortal animal. And so I don't feel lonely. I don't feel isolated. I don't feel in that solitude or in that aloneness. I feel tremendously connected to everything around me and humanity and the animal world, and to, just being alive. It's also, there's something about language, and how can we even begin to understand what it means to speak to someone, to be heard, and to listen. It's an extraordinary intimacy. When you read, you are inhabiting someone's mind, someone's heart, someone's soul, to varying degrees, of course, but it's an unbelievable intimacy. And how can language even do that? How does it? It's astonishing to me, and it's so tied to humanity that it's now it's hard to disconnect it. But of course, there are so many ways to communicate, and that act of communication, singing, touch, voice, language, numbers, time, silence, gesture. How do we do that? How is it that what we are reaches what you are? How does that thing happen? So we talk about standing waves, and we talk about, all of that, the frequencies we can't hear. We talk about the kinds of light that we can't see, that are all still there. And during the day, the stars are still there. But the interconnected reality, it is reality. It's not a construct or something imagined or something. We are interconnected in that way. And so language is just like a fragment, a remnant, a piece of something so much larger. So language is that for me. And so what has writing taught me? It has also taught me something about that interconnectedness that one can find in the tiniest fragment.
Beautiful.
It's for a long time I thought, really language is it's a kind of failure. Writing is just inevitably a failure. You can never recreate experience. Impossible. You and it's true, you can't. But something happens, something else happens. It's in the gap between. Maybe that's a change of state. It's in the gap between that we connect. So, yeah. So that's about as far from the publishing industry that you could possibly be.
Yeah.
I am in some speck in space.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, Yes. I guess that's when you start to feel alone, when you enter into the industry part of it, and you
Yeah.
realize that
Yeah.
you have to, I don't know, you must feel that too, right? The business
Oh,
end of
I
it.
do.
Yeah.
There's a level of acknowledgement, but it's a great level of detachment, and not in terms of disregard, but I think it's listening to yourself, isn't it? Listening to yourself, listening to the quintessence of something, like you were saying about how the amount of time it takes is the amount of time it takes, because it's something coming through. It's, and that in itself is sacred, and I think it's intuitive. And when it comes to the that side of the industry, or how something is brought into a state of how many people absorb something or have access to it, it's I think there's an acknowledgement of it, that it's not, in no way does that enter the act or the journey. It's just I guess it's a part of something, but it's, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting for me, early on in the process of, because I guess we exist in multidisciplinary realms, and sound is one part of it. But I think earlier on with that side of things with sound, it was grating. It felt like it exhausted a lot of energy from me, just in terms of coinciding with this realm of people who, trying to take things and channel them out in a sense of repetition, in a way that obviously works for a lot of elements within that process, but it never worked for us, and it never worked. And there was a real moment of just being okay with, just, to be honest, trust. I have the endless trust in the work we make, but not for a place of success, although obviously I'd love it to reach the people it's meant to reach. But I pushed that aside, I think, in later years, of just trusting in the process of how things happen is how they happen. And being as present as I can be with the work in the live sense as well, and within all incarnations of the work, all mediums, like to be entirely present, for that to be captured on the tape, for that to be captured on the film, on the negative. That for me is, I feel like that's a sense of reaching in itself. And then where that then, it's like what you were saying earlier in this conversation about when a reader speaks to you about the characters, how they're shared. And it's I feel like there's a sense of that, when someone has heard it by whichever means, whether it be by, more the conventional means of maybe how it's reached them, or more that there's been this fortuitous way of them coming across something. The way something finds someone or something is the way that it's meant to. And there's a lot of beauty. There's an art to letting go, I feel.
It's so interesting, because speaking about the music industry, it's so catered towards the administration for the artist, the self-marketing, all these. If you really, over the years, it's funny because in terms of the actual maturity of the project, where we are, I think it's really funny, when we turn up to the performances that we turn up to, there's so much that we've been through. There's so many lessons that we've learned. There's so much introspection that we bring to our performances. And people people are very, you know, the performances are incredibly, at least I feel to be for myself, they're incredibly moving. They're becoming more moving as time goes on in terms of we've completely severed those expectations of what been made, you know, because, and this is why we do everything ourselves. It's not because we want to be doing everything ourselves necessarily, because we don't. It's just more a case of the importance of actually before the art. It's about the lifestyle. It's about that quintessence and finding those spaces in between. You know, you're going to speak about them, and you're going to write about them, and you're going to sing about them, or you're going to make a film about them. And you've got to be it. You've got to find it. And I find it such an intoxicating means of exchange with myself and the universe, that's how I just want to live. And all of a sudden you realize that if you do that uncompromisingly, yes, it can be incredibly challenging, because of course, you know, that approach, exactly as you speak about, this idea of, you know, this discourse between a writer who takes such time over their work versus an industry that's asking this and that of you and me. And I think at the end of the day, it's about how does one want to live? It's a question of what is life, what's important to us. I feel like these days, just the degree of gratitude that I have for life is enough, actually. You know, I have such gratitude for so many of the fundamentals that make up the fabric of my life, you know, and I'm incredibly privileged in many respects, but I feel that to be relative, actually, regardless of my environment, regardless of anyone's environment, actually. And you speak to people who've endured some of the most awful struggles in life, and there are some of the most beautiful beings who can take that gratitude for who they are and what they are, and the relationships they have, or the relationships they've lost. It's such a fundamental. So I think for us, what's begun to become incredibly apparent is that's the pinnacle for us. That's the day to day. It's trying to exist and live and create within that space, and just the rest will follow, because you know, what else is there for us to do, especially with what our work is? It couldn't be more discordant with the kind of the model of the music industry these days, and I think we're okay with that. You know, we're okay with this notion of being so far into maturity in our creative worlds. You know, feeling so, the friends that we have friends from all walks of life, varying successes over, you know, dotted around the world. We very much walk on that plane with those individuals, but still from an outside, when people come to see our performances and they're so moved, and they say, why is it that so few people are seeing this? Why is that? It's because for us, it's because it has to be that's how organics work. You know, that's how nature is. Things take time, and I feel like we're reclaiming that notion of time and gratitude. And whatever happens, whether, you know, I have a feeling now that there's an essence within what we're doing. There's a magic that's you speaking about the characters that you create, that your work feels to be finished when those characters are embodied by others. You know, I'm feeling like the essence of what we do and what we create is being embodied by those people. That's, for me, I know that's almost enough, you know.
It's the intention, isn't it, behind a vision that just came to mind, and it's like you know, what are they called? King Alfred cake, the black fungus.
Oh, Prince Alfred. I can't.
Because
yeah,
apparently it's one of the names that it's a type of it's like a black fungus that grows off of dead wood, and I think it was labeled King Alfred cakes because he burned cakes, and they decided to.
he was a bad cook.
title it
King
that,
Alcohol.
but it's been used for hundreds of years, whereby if you split that truffle in half, you can store an ember inside. And I mean, going way back, people would carry the embers of fire in these truffles, not because they couldn't, because they're some of the greatest fire starters, but it was to carry an ember from a home fire and to carry it forwards. And I think, you know, in these different realms, I'm sure it's the same with you writing, and you know, in the medium, it's like it's the intention that goes in to the work you make. You're carrying that truffle, and you're on a solitary journey, but you're not solitary, because you're embraced by the earth you're walking through, the wind, the rain, everything. You're carrying this ember, and then at some point you have a feeling, a knowing that comes within you, but also the nature around you tells you this is the place to make the fire. And then that fire attracts others, the warmth. And once that fire exists in its whole state, then others will take from that fire and they will carry that ember. Just a little vision that came to mind, but it's the intention, isn't it? It's the intention as to why we make, because that's when something is truly felt. You know, that's when it's truly felt. When it's truly felt, it's you then carry it within you. You absorb it. It's like with your work. You know, like I can feel that intention wholly. That's why it allows me a lens of perception. And it's that I think that in itself is a type of alchemy.
Really?
That's so beautiful, so true, so beautiful. And you know that you are able to do this yourselves. You have your studio, you have your space, you have your, you know, what you need to work. And that you are and that's what you are doing is fantastic. It's fantastic. And the control over what you are doing in every way. I know it's very hard, and the detail of it, and it is exhausting, and it's I understand absolutely what that is. But you have complete control over how you bring it into the world, and people are finding you and will continue to find you, and more will find you. And even, you know, even what you are putting out online, your intention is so clear, and it's astonishing. The integrity of what you're doing is so absolute that is evident even for people who are, you know, scrolling, popping from one thing to another online. You are arrested by that stillness and intention that comes out of, it's evident online. And, you know, I can only imagine the power of it in performance. But I just want you to know how really profoundly you are communicating your intention. And so it becomes, as I love this image of the ember, because it does feel like a kind of shelter. People know what your space is, what that space is. They can be there. And it's really important. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
it's been Yeah, so powerful to speak to you. You know, it's so lovely. It's been so moving and evocative and thought provoking. Yeah, it's a real treasure. So thank you for joining us. You know, it's it was. I mean, it was such a chance meeting. We really. I mean, and for Jack, you know, to have hosted us and to have brought us together. It's just really thankful for everything that you do. You know, it's a beautiful project. And,
Yeah, it's a beautiful project. Thank you. And I hope we meet. I hope we meet again. I hope we meet again.
Absolutely.
We met before, we're meeting now.
Yeah.
And I hope we meet again.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, thank you both very much. It's been wonderful witnessing this conversation. It's really gone on a journey with you both and entering in this new space. And I can't wait to hear what song results from it.
Oh, me too, absolutely. So you'll send it to me. I assume I will hear it. Yes.
Yeah, of course we will.
Yes, we have to end on that very mundane note. But yes, I look forward so much to all you will be doing, to all you do. And thank you again, Jack, really so much.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Anne. Thank you. Okay, it's a wrap. Thank you, guys.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. That's really gone over the time there. It's really given us so much time. Hope we didn't keep you from anything.
I hope I didn't keep you from anything. And I hope your son is feeling great.
I hope so great. Too. Yeah. Yeah, he's fine. He's 2.5 and he's just being 2.5. So
yeah.
It's nothing serious. Yeah.
That's his job.
All right. Well, I'll stay on with the guys for a few minutes. We just have an after buzz chat and
okay.
We'll send you the song.
Okay.
It's going to take quite a few months, so don't.
Yes. No. Absolutely. It takes the time it takes, as we know. And wishing you all well and sending much love. All right. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
Well done, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry, well, yeah, we initially we thought it was at 5 o'clock.
It wasn't
because it was UK time.
Yeah.
So we actually finished it at the 6 o'clock. But obviously, but no, that was really wow.
Yeah.
Live up to your expectations. Yeah.
Oh my word, and beyond.
No.
I mean,
it was just a wonderful conversation. Really.
Yeah.
It was it's like anything, you know, we'd written questions out, but we arrived at all of those questions without discarded all of them. It was just just a beautiful conversation. Yeah, and thank you for, you know, making it happen and bringing those worlds together.
My pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. And go and open a nice bottle of Beaujolais and
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and then see what the song comes out of it. I know you're in a retreat now, so I'm expecting
we'll be doing it tonight, don't worry.
Yeah. In the night.
No, we will. Yeah.
I mean, it's got we've a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I'm very evocative. I feel like a glass of wine too.
Hell yeah.
Fun,
Good glass of red wine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'll go and check on my son, and I can't wait to go back and forth with you and hear what the song comes out. And if you need any, you don't need any help with it, but we have musicians in Italy and a producer if you want help with anything. But I know you don't need it. You're completely self-sufficient. But
one thing that'll be really useful if you can is if you're able to send us the video.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just so we can just extrapolate it all and just
sure.
through it. Obviously, it's a lot for us to think about, but it'd just be really helpful if that's okay. So yeah, if you could do that, then we can just jot it down, get the transcript.
Yeah,
sure. No, it was a great idea to interview a writer because you're going to get better lyrics. You know, they just
Yeah.
she talks so
Yeah,
poetically.
just make all the lyrics. This is the space in. There you go. There's the song.
I mean, like to rituals and thresholds. It was just such evocative language. And yeah, I can't wait to see what road you go down. One of many. There's no wrong road with this conversation. With this, I'm sure. Whatever you come, the first idea will be the best idea. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
it's already ready there and waiting.
Yeah, you're right. We'll keep in touch, and I hope it's well with the little one, we're just an email away. So.
Yeah, and I hope she comes to one of your concerts. That would be wonderful to see.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
I expect her to come to one of our concerts in England. Yeah,
Maybe a tour of Canada is in order.
Next one. No, we'll take it to Canada.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, guys.
Okay, Jack. Take care.
Thanks so much, Jack.
You too. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
of change.